Good day to all of you. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us today, July 5, 2022. It's a Tuesday, and today we are going to have interesting conversations and once again, trying to inform the public so they would better understand the topics or the headlines. In particular, the economic zones. Okay, as you may know, President Bongbong Marcos recently, as of July 1, vetoed a proposed law that would have created an economic zone inside the new Manila International Airport, aka the San Miguel Bulacan International Airport. Now, after that, a lot of things happened. Malacanang had to clarify that it was the bill, not the airport, that was being addressed. And what has happened is a lot of people are now asking questions. What is so difficult, complicated, or what are these economic zones all about? Okay, so we will discuss that with our first guest today, and that will be followed by ROTC. If you will be in college, second year, I think it's first year, second year, college in a few years, maybe in a year or so, and the bill of the pending proposed suggested imagined bill of Senator Bato Dela Rosa and Vice President Sara Duterte passes, then you will all be going march time, march, kaliwa na, etc. because it calls for mandatory ROTC to be returned. Pag-uusapan natin yan later, but first, let's go to our daily starter. And it is from John Blanchard. To waste time is to squander a gift from God. Remember po, to waste time is to squander a gift from God. It is the only thing that we get from God that you can't buy, you can't go back to. Once time passed, tapos na. So don't squander the time. And speaking of squandering the time, let's not do that. Go to the front page of the Philippine Star, July 5, 2022. The headline goes, Marcos to retain COVID alert levels. Okay, the COVID alert level 1 will remain in place according to the NIATF will also stay for now. At the top of the front page, DOJ Chief Jesus Crispin Boying Remulla says that the Land Registration Authority or LRA, Bureau of Corrections, Bureau of Immigration need cleansing. Okay lang yan, cleansing. Wag lang exorcism. Okay. In the meantime, Palas, Malacanang has said Imelda birthday bash was simply a family affair. Hindi naman daw po yan ang grandeng okasyon o piyestahan sa Malacanang because critics were quick to comment on that. Positivity rate in NCR jumps from 7.5% to 8.3%. Please laang, wag na po kayong maghintay na ma-lockdown na naman tayo. Let's all be more prudent and vigilant regarding COVID-19 because it is still with us. Dalawa na sa kamag-anak. Isang buong pamilya, barangay ng kapatid ko, tinamaan na ng COVID. Okay, that center photo is a photo of President Bongbong Marcos reviewing the troops of the Presidential Security Group, while the other photo is of Vice President Sara Duterte gingerly assisting outgoing Education Secretary Leonor Liling Briones as VP Sara takes over her position. Maraming salamat po, Secretary Briones, for a job well done. Okay, before I forget, forget, at the top of the photo, the good news for today in sports, Filipina footballers, Pinay boosters, shocked the Australian team after defeating them 1-0 yesterday. No? Na 1-0 nila yung mga Australiana during their AFP, Asian Football Federation Women's Championship match at the Rizal Memorial Stadium. Ayan. Okay, meanwhile, in the meantime, Palace awaits DOJ recommendations on suspicious believed deaths. Okay, for those of you who are not aware, yung believed 8, yung 8 high-profile drug suspects detained at the believed all died of COVID, and now the NBI has filed charges against 22 PNP Bucor personnel for murder daw. Okay. Senate vows better version of Bulacan ecozone bill, which is something we will discuss for our professor today, a veteran in politics, in pati sa armed forces, reserve forces, veterana na siya, pamilyang matagal na, institusyon na sa politika. We will discuss that with Ma'am Charito Plaza of the PEZA later on. That photo, the bottom of the front page, pamarisan nyo po. Let us follow that gentleman's example. Is a photo of a very elderly citizen filling out forms for the resumption of voters registration. Kumbaga, hindi siya nakaboto ng Mayo. Now he is making sure he will be able to vote in the barangay and SK elections. Last but not the least, Concepcion, Secretary or a Presidential Advisor, Joey Concepcion, declared that the MSME loan bill as pushed by BBM, Martin Romualdez and family is a promise kept during the during the elections. Okay, and that's all we have for the news. Let's now go to our first class today. Let us get to meet our professor through this video.
Charito Plaza was appointed by President Rodrigo Roa Duterte as the head of PEZA in September 2016. She is one of the country's leading female political figures and a dedicated public servant. Her political career started in 1986 when she became the youngest congresswoman in history. She spent 2 years in Congress and co-authored the Public Act 4916, as the Special Economic Zone Act of 1995. Plaza also served as a consultant to the Interior Department, Transport Department, the National Police, and the Armed Forces.
Okay, welcome. Good morning, Ma'am Charito Plaza. Welcome to the program agenda.
Good morning, Cito, at ang ating mga tagapakinig sa napakagandang programa mo, Cito.
Okay, pagpasensyahan mo na, Ma'am Charito, but I need you to be our professor today because okay. In all honesty, most of us think of PEZAs or economic zones, okay? Na parang, ano lang, factory lang yan for export na may mga taxes at saka may trabaho yung Pilipino. End of discussion. But with the recent veto of the HB 7575 by BBM, biglang naging usap-usapan. And people started asking me questions I couldn't answer. At pa. Malay ko, pakialam ko, wala akong authority. So could you explain to us what are economic zones? Why are they so special? And why was there a sudden controversy on provision of bills in HB 7575?
Yes, Cito, no. Napakagandang pag-usapan nga 'yan, no. Itong special economic zones actually nagsimula sa atin sa Pilipinas, here in Asia. It started during the time of the late President Marcos Sr., no. siya yung nag-envision nitong gumawa ng economic zones. So, we started with 4 or 5 public economic zones. Ito yung nasa Bataan, Cavite, Baguio, Cebu, at saka sa Pampanga. No? And Taiwan followed, and until this is now the present trend. Meaning, ang halos karamihan ng mga bansa sa buong mundo, lalo na dito sa Asia, ay gumawa o nagtatayo ng mga economic zones. In fact, Cito, ito yung sikreto strategy ni China, no? Yung sleeping giant which we used to call before has now awakened, and they use the economic zone concept to attract investors of the world and bring in the technology of these investors of the world and develop yung kanilang mga lands. No? So in less than 20 years, ang China ngayon ay number 1 manufacturing country of the world, and is now competing with the US as the most industrialized country of the world. No? So ito yung in-enhance natin ngayon dito sa PEZA. So nagsimula nga tayo sa 5 public ecozones. Ito yung nag-trigger sa growth ng ating mga domestic enterprises, no? Yung mga MSMEs, for example, mga farmers, and every Filipino who become the suppliers of the raw material sa ating mga export companies, no? So itong ating special economic zones ito, as defined, no? These are strategic areas, no? Strategic areas and locations where we can create the economic zones and focus on specific products or activity. So ano yung mga specific activity, for example? So kung ang lupa ay agricultural land siya, we call it agro-industrial economic zone. Okay. So ang iniimbita nating mga industriya yung magtatayo ng mga food processing, mga agriculture related like livestock, poultry, maglalagay ng mga plantation of crops, etc. No?
Or machinery.
Or machineries, agricultural machinery, equipment, fertilizers. And then pag ang lupa ay tourism, because may natural tourism endowment siya, no? So tinatawag natin tong tourism economic zone. So specific din tayo na kailangan yung magtatayo o yung industriya ay those who will build theme parks, resort, wellness and naturopathy village at saka retirement village, no? Na wag sirain yung environment, kasi yun ang talagang fino-focus ko ngayon dito sa PEZA, that we are imposing 2 non-negotiable factors to our investors. Number 1 is environmental protection. Number 2 is respecting the rights and the welfare of the Filipino workers.
Okay,
so sa number 1 seat, protecting the environment. Ito yung rason kung bakit nung ako'y naging PEZA Director General ay in-emphasize ko talaga na kung ano ang lupa, ang land potential and the natural resources of that land, yun ang type of ecozone. And specific tayo sa mga industries equivalent, those who will utilize responsibly the land and the natural resources. So we can industrialize...
Ma'am Charito, if you don't mind, may sisingit lang ako kasi marami akong hindi naintindihan eh. Okay?
Sige.
In this thing of... kasi when Malacanang came out with the announcement, they referred to strategic development zones. Sabi ko, paano na yan? Yung Pampanga meron, bakit yung Bulacan wala? Is this determined simply by the natural resource topography of a certain location? Sabi mo, agro-industrial or tourism, etc.
Correct.
Or hindi ba pwedeng ma-adapt by every province a special ecozone para lahat naman, sana all. Alam mo naman, sabi nila, sana all.
Oo. In fact, Cito, yun ang ating programa ngayon. No? Sinuportahan ito ni dating Presidente Duterte. Nag-issue siya ng Administrative Order 18 to mandating PEZA and the other agencies of government to help in spreading the creation of special economic zones in the countryside. no.
Okay.
So
So hindi limited to the 5 existing kasi
Hindi.
merong Cagayan, 'di ba? May Cagayan. Ewan ko nga ano ba yung Cagayan? Economic ba 'yan? Industrial
yes.
ba 'yan?
Ito yun, Cito, no? Actually, ang ating mga economic zones are either created by law, pareho nitong nangyayari sa Bulacan nga, and then or directly to be registered with PEZA. Kasi si PEZA ang authorized agency to register lands and buildings to become economic zones.
So are economic zones government created, legislated, or as you're suggesting, it can also be created by private sector?
Yes. In fact, sa aming 417 economic zones na operating nationwide, no, registered with PEZA, 4 lang yung public zones na owned by the national government, managed by PEZA. Ang 411 or more, no, are privately owned economic zone. Ang kaibahan dito, pag nililegislate mo kasi ang isang economic zone, it requires already the government to provide infrastructure, to provide budget, yearly budget, no?
Kasi pag may batas, kailangan may pera.
May pera. So
okay.
yun ang magiging burden sa gobyerno kung legislated economic zone. Kasi maglagay talaga ng pundo kahit papaano, pareho nitong kay Ramon Ang sa Bulacan, no? Kayang-kaya naman punduhan ni Mr. Ramon ang lahat yan, no? Kaso, because it is by legislation, kahit papaano, maglalagay talaga ang gobyerno ng pundo, no? So, in the words of the veto message of the President, magiging competitor ito sa meager resources of government that could have been placed to other important programs. Okay.
Sorry Ma'am Charito. But what happens if, kasi di ba meron tayong local government independence. What happens now if the governor or the province of Bulacan and the mayor says, well, we will bankroll our own kasi it's going to be in our territory. It will create jobs for us. It will create taxes and opportunities. Is that possible for a local government, provincial or otherwise, to say we're building our own?
Yes, very possible. In fact, we are, because of AO 18, we are now inviting the local government units, kung meron silang pag-aari na public land owned by the LGU, even inviting the national government agencies like DNR, who is managing the biggest public land of the country, no? Pati yung ating mga indigenous peoples, mga IPs who owns the ancestral domain lands, in-invite din natin, and of course the private sector landowners, no? Ini-invite natin na tingnan nila kung may potential na magiging special economic zone yung kanilang mga lupain, no? Kasi ganito ang sitwasyon ngayon ng ating bansa, no? Ginawan ko ng inventory kung ano yung land holdings natin. So I found out we have 30 million hectares of land holdings throughout the country. 15 million hectares are timberland and are now idle. Kasi hininto natin yung wood industry. And very ironic because we are now importing wood from other countries. Meron tayong mga locators dito sa PEZA na wood-based, no, gumagawa sila ng prefabricated housing materials, no, components. They have to import wood from Malaysia, from Indonesia.
Naku po, may napuntahan ako yung Highland Development ni Bobby Ongpindo sa Baguio, imported daw lahat ng kanilang mga kahoy. Sabi ko, kaya gumawa tayo ng agroforestry economic zone para ma-restore back natin yung wood industry at we will be assured of reforestation because once we have wood-based industries na mag-locate doon sa ating mga timberland, the plantation area will also be assured na talagang pa-plant nila ng trees ito kasi ito yung source ng raw materials nila. Otherwise, magi-import na naman sila, no? Then another fact, Cito, no? We have almost 12 million hectares of agricultural lands. Why are we importing rice, sugar, coffee, halos lahat, no? And then
ang daming bakante nitong mga agricultural lands. Kaya gusto ko nga sanang makausap ang ating mahal na Presidente BBM kasi ito yung i-offer ni PEZA na dapat i-inventory muna natin itong mga agricultural land holdings natin na pwedeng gawing agro-industrial economic zone.
Okay.
No?
Ma'am Charito, so thank you. No? Marami ako natututunan and our viewers, I'm sure. So this is not a limited right to government, yung pagtatayo ng economic zone. It can be put up by a private. By local government, by the national. The only problem that I'm inferring in what you're saying, yung naging sabit doon sa HB 7575 was because yung economic zone was legislated, and because it's legislated, it will require funding, and because it will require funding, question ni BBM, bakit parang zona libre sila sa COA? Tama po ba yun?
Yun ang hindi tama, Cito. Kasi once you legislate and provide funding for a privately owned economic zone, nasa constitutional mandate yan, yung accountability. Accountability of the institution, the agency, the programs and the projects provided funding because it is passed by law.
Pero yung yatang sa Bulacan parang makikipwesto lang yata sila according to what I've heard from the statements of Mr. Ramon Ang. The airport is open. They can put up the economic zone here as per the provision of HB 7575, but it's the government's economic zone, not mine.
Yun, dapat i-clear yun, no? Na narinig naman natin yung sagot ng Malacanang na actually the president is in favor of that economic zone. However, we have to address some legal and technical issues, no?
So kumbaga yung mga statements lang doon sa proposed law ang problema.
Ayusin lang natin yon, no? But ang pinaka-safe talaga, Cito, is it can be registered to PEZA. Because
but that's where I was going to lead our discussion. Kasi merong sinasabing PEZA, may special economic zone, may register sa PEZA. Could you please explain that? Why special? What do you mean by special economic zone? And what is the advantage of registering to PEZA instead of by simple legislation? Kasi mukhang yun yung direksyon nila Amy Marcos.
Kasi pag by legislation, nagiging responsible din ang gobyerno kung ano ang operation, maintenance, at ano ang mangyayari dun sa economic zone na yon, which is privately owned. No? Privately owned. So, nandun yung burden. But if this will be registered direct to PEZA, which is the authorized agency to register privately owned, no? And even public land into economic zones. Ang PEZA kasi, Cito, will never be a burden to the government, yung mga ecozones registered with PEZA. Why? Because ang ating iniimbita na magiging ecozone developers, yung magtatayo ng ecozone, at saka mga locator industries, ay private sector, no? Mga foreign direct investment and private sector investment driven. No, investment driven. In fact, pati kami sa PEZA, we are self-reliant, self-sustaining, and resource generating. Wala kaming subsidy sa government, no? And we even remit 50% of our net profit to the government para kaming BIR, source of income ng ating gobyerno. At napakaganda naman ng ating performance. We continuously enjoy the trust and confidence of our investors and locators, no? And
there is no doubt in my mind that you have stood up and fought for and spoken out for your locators. Pero for future or potential locators, paki-explain nga ulit, ano yung special? Kasi pag sinabi mo sa akin special offer eh. Diba?
Actually, the word special means one is special because it is located, the economic zone is located in a strategic location, and manufactures, process, or produce specific products, no? Specific products or specific activity. Ano ba yung mga activities ng PEZA, no? Sa mga investors activities? Those investors who are into export-related companies ito, at saka who are into manufacturing, processing, refinery, assembly, IT BPO, agro-industrial, tourism, medical tourism. Dinagdagan pa natin yan, Cito, kasi nga we want in PEZA to utilize fully and responsibly the lands and the natural resources.
Yeah,
At kaya gumawa tayo ng different types of ecozone so we can
but
locate
not
these
all of
specific
that, Ma'am Charito, sorry. Not
Sige.
all of that is for export, di ba? Yung medical tourism, dito binibigay yung service, yung
Okay. Let me explain further, Cito, no?
Pasensya ka na, kulit ng estudyante mo eh.
Siyempre, yung mandate kasi ng PEZA, I happen to be one of the co-authors of the PEZA law, no, when I was in Congress. So ang mandate kasi sa PEZA is export-driven ang ating mga industries o mga locators, okay? And then kami yung mag-encourage for ecozone developers. So ito yung may-ari ng buildings at saka mga lands na where to locate the export driven industries, no. Bakit export ang ating focus? Kasi nga, well, Economics 101, nagle-lecture naman tayo dito. Economics 101, Cito, di ba? What is good for the economy? Export or import? Definitely it's export because when we export, we sell. We sell to the other countries the services and the goods we have in the country. And they're going to pay us back in dollars, which is the international trade currency. So ini-infuse natin ang dolyar sa ating ekonomiya. Whereas if we import, we are buying the products of other countries. So ito ngayon ang ating sitwasyon sa Pilipinas. We are an import and a consumption dependent economy.
Okay, pasensya ka na, Ma'am Charito, kasi sabi mo nga maganda yung export. I agree, export is good. But you know, in the Philippines, and I think you would agree with me, kaka-export natin, hindi na ako makatikakain ng export quality alimango. Wala ka nang mabiling sugpo ng malalaki, in-export na lahat. My point being, like there are many parts, equipment that are manufactured in those export processing zones, sent abroad, which we in the Philippines have to buy back when we need it here. So parang, hello, made in the Philippines, bought in China or bought in Taiwan.
Yes.
Ano ba yan?
Tama yan, Cito, no? Kaya nga nung ako'y naupo na DG, I have to put order na kailangan harmonize. Kailangan meron tayong, kumbaga, walang nagugutom na Pilipino. Kasi yung ating supply chain, kumpleto, no? Kumpleto, we don't need to export food because kumpleto, nataniman ang lahat ng bakanting lupa, no? And then maximize yung ating production capability, yung ating manufacturing capability.
Pasensya ka na, Ma'am Charito, we're down to 3 minutes eh.
Complete the supply chain. So with export-driven companies coming in, bringing their capital investment, their technology, creating jobs, natitrigger ang growth ng ating mga domestic enterprises. Kaya makita mo, Cito, kung saan yung economic zone ay talagang nag-grow ang mga constituents.
Direct benefits to constituents. You're correct. But however, kasi ang point ko lang, Ma'am Charito, is there a provision in the PEZA system na at least man lang 20% of those produced goes back to the local market?
There is.
Yun.
There is, Cito. Okay. So while we register export companies, no, however, we are now encouraging na kailangan madagdagan yung local sales nitong mga export companies. So for example, presently we allow 30% of the sales allowance of the export companies registered with PEZA to be sold domestically, no. Kailangan dagdagan natin 'yan kasi nga para makumpleto yung supply, yung food and others, magiging ano tayo, hindi na tayo maging import dependent, but kumpleto yung ating supply chain, nataniman lahat ng lupa, hindi na tayo mag-import. Kasi nga pag nag-import tayo, we buy the products of other countries, ang dami nating lupa, no? Very fertile soil. Ang ating mga Pilipino, napakagaling, no? We are among the young workforce of the world who can speak English.
Yeah.
Ang very dynamic, no?
Well, Ma'am
Brilliant.
Charito, now that you've experienced the agenda encounter, I hope you will return for a second lecture in the near future.
Sure.
Kasi, you know, you're giving me hope dahil one of my personal frustrations as a former motoring journalist was the departure of Goodyear tires from the Philippines.
True.
They were manufacturing here for what, 50 years? Tapos tumaas ang kuryente, tinaasan ng upa, nagkaipitan. Sabi sa akin nung kanilang country president, adios, amigo, we're going to Thailand. And our only hope of getting all of those companies back in the Philippines are these export processing zones.
Right. So if I may summarize in all, Cito, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Nakikita po namin based on the success stories of our LGU hosts, no, na itong economic zones talaga ang nagiging economic driver na nag-grow yung ating mga LGUs, nagiging productive ang ating mga Pilipino, no, ang ating mga MSMEs, even the farmers and everybody who becomes the suppliers, no, nainganyo na ma-plant, ma-develop yung ating mga lupain lahat, no, para magiging ano na tayo, self-reliant, self-sustaining, and resource generating. So kailangan i-maximize natin yung ating production capability, our manufacturing capability. So ito nga ang programa ni PEZA. In every region, we are identifying potential special economic zones, no, specific to certain products, and then specific to certain activities like manufacturing, processing. So
yes,
lahat pareho nitong Cito, no, yung we are the 5th mineralized country in the world. Ang dami nating minerals, but what is going on, we allow the export of raw minerals. So pati lupa ini-export, no? Nasira ang ating environment. Meron kaming ginawang mineral processing economic zone to protect the environment, and we are inviting processors, no, into finished products, mas lalong titingkad ang ating ekonomiya, maraming trabaho ang naibigay sa ating mga tao. So ito ngayon ang ating
I am
programa.
100% that you will make a return of the comeback here on Agenda, Ma'am Charito, because
Yes.
I think that mineral processing zone is going to be a vital operation in the BBM agenda, and we are looking forward na magkatuloy-tuloy itong economic zone sa Bulacan. Because sabi ko nga, para silang middle child, sinulat ko doon sa column ko, hindi napapansin. It's NCR, Pampanga, pero yung Bulacan, hindi napapansin. Okay, anyway, thank you very much, Ma'am Charito Plaza.
Thank you, Cito.
The bossing of export processing zones in the Philippines. PEZA, thank you very much. We'll go for a quick break. God bless you, ma'am. Okay. We will go for a quick break, and when we return, usapang ROTC na po tayo. And hindi pa naman official, pero yan ang pag-uusapan kasi baka iba sa inyo batuhin ako di sa TV. Mahal ang TV.
Din ako. Kasi
Yes,
reservist din ako. I can say much about ROTC and the reservist program.
Ma'am, i-reserve na natin kay
yan.
Senator Dela Rosa. Thank you very much, Ma'am Charito. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay, we'll go for a quick break, and when we return, we'll bring in our next guest, Senator Bato Dela Rosa here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda and continuing your daily education on the program here on Cignal TV. We will now talk about ROTC or Reserve Officers Training Corps because no less than Vice President Sara Duterte has been pushing for this because she believes ROTC will restore discipline and patriotism among Filipinos. Now, ang inaasahan niya na tutulong sa kanya in the Senate is none other than Senator Ronald Bato Dela Rosa. Let's watch this video of our next guest.
Senator Ronald Bato Dela Rosa, the public servant from senior lawmaker, Dela Rosa is first the PNP chief of former President Bongbong Marcos administration. In his first years at the Senate, Dela Rosa spearheaded the passage of the PSP Modernization Act and the High Equality Act. He is a member of the PNP Senate class of 1996. The senator also holds a master's degree in public administration and a doctorate degree in development administration.
Okay, Senator Bato Dela Rosa, good morning sa imo, sir.
Good morning sa imo din, Cito, at sa ating mga tagapanood. Good morning po.
May atraso ako sa iyo. I owe you an apology that we were not able to get back to you after the President decided to cancel isabong because if anyone deserves the credit, you do. Talagang ikaw nag-imbestiga dun sa disappearance of the 34 sabongeros and you were the one who shed a lot of light in the Senate along of course with Senator Francis Tolentino na para matigil yung isabong. So congratulations on that victory, Mr. Senator.
Thank you, Cito, thank you. Trabaho lang po yun. Walang personalan.
Okay. Buti naman kung ganun lagi. Ano po? Now, pag-usapan natin at sana walang bumato ng mga TV natin. Ano? Kasi pag-uusapan natin ROTC. Ano ba ang... what is this modified version? Meron ka raw modified version of ROTC that you were quoted as saying about a month ago.
Well, Cito, this is all about the same bill that I proposed during the 18th Congress na hindi nabigyan ng tamang panahon dahil dito sa pandemic ay hindi masyadong napagtuunan ng pansin. Kaya i-refile ko ito ngayong 19th Congress at ang laman naman nito ay yung ROTC ibabalik natin, gagawin natin mandatory doon sa grades 11 and 12. Lalaki at babae kasama dito. So yun po ang ating proposal dito. Grades 11 and 12. Kung babalikan natin during our time, this was before the implementation of the K plus 12 program. This was already first year and second year college during our time. So yun ang gagawin natin, grades 11 and 12.
Okay, pasensya ka na Mr. Senator, no? Alam mo naman, kampi-kampi tayo but I have to ask you all the questions na pinadala sa akin ng mga kabataan, okay?
No problem.
And teachers as well, no? One issue that was raised is how are you going to develop this program? Kasi most people are saying before passing the law, you should actually make sure that those in charge have developed the curriculum or the program. Hindi yung pakipunasan nga yung alikabok dun sa baol ni Kuya Cito at ni Senator Bato at ilabas yung lumang-lumang ROTC program. Because I guess, you know, the changing times and values also require us to upgrade or update.
Well, ito yung magiging basic naman ito, Cito, no? since the introduction of ROTC in 1935, dahil nga dito sa balikan natin yung Commonwealth Act number 1 or yung National Defense Act of 1935. Yung ROTC andyan na at ang laman nito kahit na nagbabago yung panahon, nagbabago yung teknolohiya, pero yung basic na requirement ng isang citizen, ng isang mamamayan sa kanyang pagmamahal sa kanyang bansa ay hindi yan magbabago. Andyan yan. Do or die yan na attitude. Yung patriotism, andyan palagi yan. So, ang basic ROTC, ang laman naman nito ay, of course, number 1 is yung inculcating patriotism among the youth and developing them militarily para in case, as a reserve force, in case of crisis, they can be mobilized by the government to support our regular armed forces. So basic man ito, wala mang problema. Ang implementation lang, siguro, over time, yun nga, due to abuse, due to corruption, reduced into, yung sinasabi na nawawala yung curriculum, reduce ito punas-punas into pagtatabas ng mga damo, yun lang nangyari. Hindi na-implementa talaga yung basic curriculum. Kung susundin lang ako, I am a product of ROTC ito. Nag-basic ROTC ako doon sa Mindanao State University, Marawi City, at nag-advance ROTC ako. Bali 4 years ako yung aking ROTC, hindi 2 years. Almost 4 years kasi on the 4th year, pumasa ako na PMA, kaya hindi ko natapos yung aking
But Senator Bato, may mga comments kasi ng mga tao na imbis na walang ginawa kundi magbilad sa araw, magmarcha at sigawan, hindi man lang sila nakakaputok ng tunay na barel, wala silang mga bivouac katulad nung tayo yung mga Boy Scout, wala silang mga camping. There are suggestions na dapat introduce na lang yung CPR, yung mga emergency rescue, etc. Kumbaga, more on the disaster and responding to problems in the community.
Well, kasama yan sa ROTC. Kahit na hindi pa gaano kalakas yung disasters ng panahon natin, meron naman yan, i-introduce yan. Kasama yan sa curriculum. So, i-emphasize natin yan na magiging kasama yan dahil ang papel naman ng reserve forces is not purely military, is not purely gera, kundi pati rin they will be mobilized by the government in times of crisis, natural disasters and calamities. So kasama po yan, kasama yan sa magiging
What about professional trainers or ewan ko kung pwedeng gamitin yung teachers kasi may mga nagsasabi rin na dapat yung mga magtuturo ng ROTC are organic, integral teachers of the schools. Hindi yung outsider na mga military personnel papasok sa university pagkatapos magtuturo and hindi sila natatanggap kasi outsider sila. It has nothing to do with military civilian. Kung hindi, you're not part of our community. Tapos nagugulo yung balance. Is there a possibility na yung bang mga teacher na gustong maging ROTC dedicated teachers, sila na lang yung bigyan ng training at sila yung mag-develop ng ROTC in the schools?
Well, pwede yan Cito. That's a good proposal and sigurado ako mapapag-usapan yan between DepEd and DND on how they are going to implement this law. Sila naman gagawa ng IRR pertaining to this law. So, mapag-usapan nila yan. At maganda po yan para yung acceptability ng mga trainers ay andyan na. Hindi na kailangang mag-adjust yung mga estudyante dahil taga dyan talaga sa loob ng eskwelahan nila. So, but siguro, we will just set a certain minimum standard kung sinong pwede magturo, kung sinong hindi. Siguro. Kasi nga, on the part of the DND, sa military side, I was thinking na ang dapat para maiwasan itong corruption, maiwasan yung pang-aabuso, ang ilagay dito sa ROTC ay gagawin natin itong best of the best. Yung cream of the crop ng armed forces dapat ang pag-handle dito. Kasi noon, ang nilalagay dyan sa yung mentality ng military noon, nilagay sa ROTC yung mga reserve officers na alam mo na,
mga sakit sa ulo.
They lack the standard. Kaya yun ang nangyari. Pero ngayon gawin natin, dapat ang ilagay dyan yung mga best of the best ng military.
Okay, now Senator Bato, that ito may comment regarding yung grades 11 and 12. Baka raw lang hindi ninyo kasi na-realize grades 11 and 12 are the most difficult years for K to 12 kasi doon na yung pagtatapos nila. So medyo intense lalo na yung mga nag-IB. Okay, IB. Hindi ko lang alam ano ibig sabihin ng IB. Baccalaureate yata or something. Wouldn't it be better to put it on first year, second year college like in our time? Yun.
Well, we will hear them, Cito. We will hear them. Magkakaroon naman tayo ng mga hearings. Titingnan natin. I'm sure the committee that will hear this proposal is open to all suggestions coming from all sectors, coming from all stakeholders nitong programang ito. So we're open. Pakinggan natin sila.
Okay, now as far as you're concerned, what is a must? Kumbaga, paglabas ng Dela Rosa bill, ano yung hindi mo ipagpapalit kahit sa ano? And did Vice President Sara Duterte convey a particular request that should appear in the law?
Well, so far, hindi pa kami nag-usap ni Vice President Sara regarding her intentions, yung kanyang proposal. Wala pa kami napag-usapan, but ang akin lang talaga, ang non-negotiable dito sa akin, ito'y magiging mandatory sa lahat ng youth, whether it's grades 11 or 12 or magiging first year, second year college. Basta importante lahat ay dadaan dito dahil nga Cito kailangan natin talaga ito magkakaroon ng ready reserve force anytime. Alam natin yung impending threat coming from China. We are a very small country. We have nobody to turn to pag naoberan yung ating regular armed forces. So pag tayo ay nagkakaroon ng invasion, ay sinong matatap natin kung wala tayong kabataan na train militarily through ROTC. So kailangan talaga lahat tayo prepared. Hindi natin alam that geopolitics around the world now is very, very fluid. Alam natin kung ano nangyari dyan sa Ukraine. Mga relative lang yan ng Russian. Mga the same blood, the same race, the same family name, the same language. Pero inatake nila, in-invade nila. So how much more tayo? Hindi naman ganyan lahat ng mata natin dito. Sigurado. Diba?
Okay, well, Senator, medyo seryosong tanong. Who's going to pay for all of this? Is this going to be a private sector expenditure? Yung bang mga estudyante will have to buy their own uniforms, their own gear, etc. And will the private schools or public schools for that matter have to spend? Kasi I remember when you first started talking about this in the last administration, yun yung naging isa sa mga issues. Sinabi, it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take 1 or 2 years to get off the ground again, and it will require, ewan ko ba, billion ba yung sinabi? I think you're more familiar with the expense.
Sito, yung nga, reklamo ng mga parents, ROTC na naman, mahal ang uniforme, mahal ang combat boots, gagastos na naman tayo. Kasama doon isang provision doon sa bill natin na yung one set of uniform doon sa lahat ng magi-grade 11 ay is going to be subsidized by the government. So ang gobyerno ang mag-subsidize ng uniform nila.
Okay.
Yung lahat ng grades 11, yung one set of uniform na yan, good for the whole ROTC program niya hanggang grade 12 niya.
Okay. When you say subsidize, partial subsidize, or will pay for the whole uniform?
Well, ang sa akin is kung pwede, buong uniform, one set should be fully subsidized by the government. Pero pakinggan rin natin yung government agency concerned tungkol dito kung ano masasabi nila, kung kakayanin ba nila or hindi. Kasi kung kakayanin nila, isasama natin ito sa yearly na yung GAA ng either DND or ng DepEd. Ilalagay natin ito para magkakaroon talaga ng appropriation para dito.
Okay. What about yung sabi ng bata sa akin, variety. Variety daw. Kasi yung iba ayaw ng military, gusto PNP. Yung iba gusto Coast Guard. Yung iba gusto, ewan ko, Boy Scout and Girl Scout daw. Kasi kung ang pinag-uusapan lang naman ay discipline at saka knowledge, pwede naman daw iba-iba na areas. What is your response to that?
I am open to that, Cito. I am open to that. Palakihin natin yung coverage. Coast Guard, PNP. I have no problem with that. Ito namang mga ahensya na ito, they are all uniform agencies, no? And they are quasi-military. So wala akong problema. I am open to that pagdating sa discussion.
Meron dito isa, parang kalahi yata ito ni Muhammad Ali, draft resistor. Sabi niya, paano raw yung mga kung talagang for religious and whatever political beliefs, sabi, we don't believe in that. What will be the consequence? No ROTC, no graduate?
Pag-uusapan natin yan, Sito. Usapan natin yan dahil titingnan natin kung babalik tayo sa konstitusyon yan. Yung constitutionality of this particular measure, kung magiging questionable ba. Titingnan natin sa deliberation.
Pero would you be open to alternatives? Kumbaga, okay, ayaw mo mag-ROTC. Parang yung father-in-law kong tiga Holland Sabi nila, sorry, we are not Catholics. Okay, you're not Catholic, you don't want to go to the Sunday Mass. Okay, you go to the kitchen, your kitchen patrol. Okay, dito sa program mo, sa ROTC, if a person does not want or feels that because of personal or religious beliefs, hindi sila pwede sa ganyan, pwede bang alternative as in community service or whatever?
Hindi ako makasagot sa iyo.
Okay.
Ngayon dyan, kasi ang sa akin is mandatory talaga Mandatory sa akin
Pasensya ka na. Sabi ko siya, Senator Bato Daming tanong nito mga bata to
Alam ko. Lalabas at lalabas yan. Let us see. Titingnan natin. Sa deliberation, magpapasukan yung lahat ng mga inputs dyan. Pagdating doon sa... Basta sa akin lang talaga isa mandatory. Yun lang sa akin, mandatory. Regardless of religion, regardless of belief, you being a Filipino, you should be ready to serve and protect this country in times of crisis, in times of emergency.
Well, I share in that belief, although I have to confess, ako naman medically exempt from ROTC dahil alam mo naman lumutang yung spine ko nung ako bata. So
yung medically unfit, sigurado yan, exempted yan. Ang nakalagay naman sa exemption doon sa ROTC ay yung mga medically unfit, physically unfit at saka yung mga nakapag-undergo na ng military training kagaya ng bago siya pumasok ng grades 11 and 12 ay nakapag-undergo na pala siya ng basic military training, nag-training na siya sa army, ganun. So exemption yan.
Okay, now last question, Senator Bato. What days will ROTC be under? Kasi one of the major complaints nung panahon natin, alam mo naman to, yung ROTC kung hindi Sabado, Linggo. At marami talaga ang kumbaga, teka, kung within the school day, ay payag kami. Pero yung Sabado, Linggo, yun ang alang panahon namin at saka kami ay in our religion, dapat wala kang ginagawa sa Sabado or yung iba sa Linggo. Will you adjust this to fall under the weekdays?
Walang problema. Walang problema. Basta ma-implement na itong programa na ito. Kung halimbawa, instead of Sabado, whole day ng Sabado, gawin natin 1 hour every day. Whatever, mapag-usapan na yan ng DepEd at ng DND kung paano na i-implement yan, yung curriculum, ROTC curriculum. Well, open ako dyan sa implementation.
Okay. Well, I'm confident. Alam ko naman, kilala ko naman kayo enough, Senator, that you are fair and you will listen to all parties concerned. Sayang, marami pa tayong pag-uusapan pero ubos na ang oras natin. Pero I'm sure you will have exciting times ahead of you. Sigurado yan, Cito. Alam ko maraming mag-uupos dito. But then, again, I have to convince them na we only have one nation. We only have one country. This is the Philippines, and we cannot allow this to be invaded by anybody. And so we have to prepare. We have to prepare. Okay. Suggestion ko lang, and believe me, we can do it. Make it fun. Kasi yung anak ko is studying abroad. Ito ay part of her program, and meron silang mga war games, as in literal war games. Okay. So anyway, thank you very much, Senator Dela Rosa. Looking forward to having more conversations with you.
Thank you, Cito. Thank you for the opportunity given to me to be with you in your program. Salamat,
Okay.
Cito. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po. That's Senator Bato Dela Rosa. Let's now go for our blessing for the week, which comes from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 42, verses 10 to 11. If you will remain in the land, then I will build you up and not pull you down. I will plant you and not pluck you up. For I relent of the disaster that I did to you. Do not fear the king of Babylon, of whom you are afraid. Do not fear him, declares the Lord, for I am with you to save you and to deliver you from his hand. Kahit sino pa man po ang inyong pinangangambahan, manalig sa Panginoon. I'm Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us today. And tomorrow, I won't be here. I will be elsewhere. Nandun po kami sa Ilocos for BMEG. Thank you very much. Please keep it here on One News PH.